Hello folks, so this is me here again, and this is our yet another session in the continuity of adopting to use MS Dynamics CRM. Today's our focus is more from an administration point of view. How do you set up your organization's business units and users within Dynamics CRM? So I'll quickly go through the agenda and then we can take a look at the platform. So let's get going. So today's agenda is we will of course look at how an organization is set up in CRM, how and what makes a business unit, what and how users are created. We will also look through the concept of teams of users. We will briefly look at the security role setup and how these are assigned to the users so they can perform the necessary functions. We'll go through the out-of-box feature, which is basically the Dynamics CRM can be configured to represent a hierarchical organization. That's an interesting area, and we can also see how is it possible to create matrix organizations while you actually set up a hierarchical organization, which becomes a matrix organization also by just creating teams. All right, so let's look at the platform. And by the way, I'm quite pleased to see that there's a good response on my previous webinars. I hope to impart maximum knowledge as possible through these sessions. Please bear in mind that this is quite new to me, making these sessions, so I am on the way towards improvement. All right, so this is our Dynamics CRM homepage. We just the landing page with the dashboard, and we will go into the administration area. Just remember, here's the starting point, and then we jump into settings, and here we have system administration. We'll start with administration. Please remember that there's a very fundamental concept of using ownership of records in Dynamics CRM. And ownership of a record could be anything like account, contact, lead, opportunity. And ownership of a record is primarily defined by who is the creator and who keeps the creation of the record after the record is created, who still has the prime responsibility of that record, or prime ownership, as you say. So that could be a user, that could be a team, and that could be organization itself. So let's take a look first at how we can create. So I'll just go through this again, administration, and yeah, how can we create? Actually, it's a bit different here. We have to go into security. Yeah. How can we create the organization in CRM? So when you get an instance of Dynamics CRM set up for you, that's already with one top business unit, which is basically the same as the name of the organization instance. So if I switch off the full screen mode, you can see that the name of the organization in online is the first part in the host name. This name will represent the same as here on the default the top business unit in Dynamics CRM. So excuse me. So this business unit is by default created as soon as you get an instance. It's a bit different in on-premise version, not the creation of the business unit, but how the business unit is represented in the organization name is presented in the URL. So switching back to the full screen mode, yeah. So we just had a look at how the organization is set up, and of course then on the organization level there are things like we can take a look here. We have some things which apply across the board to all configurations, to all configurable items in CRM. In this area, system settings area, this is actually available only to the if you have certain level of administration privileges in Dynamics CRM. We will look at that when we come to security notes. So briefly going through what is system settings about, it's really about all the things that Microsoft offers to be changed as behavior part, and how you, for example, you can see that select the default save option for the forms. By default, I have not changed anything. It's all by out of box. So if I save it to set it to yes, you do not see a save icon in the right corner. You actually see a save button on the ribbon. Simple stuff. Set the IAM presence option. Yeah, if you have a messenger system which is integrated with Dynamics CRM, will automatically show up there. Full name format. These are all basic stuff that you can go through and have a look at right away once you change it. So there's also a provision for Skype and link to business. You can configure your organization's link to Skype for business. Then there are some settings about the calendar. These are things that you would typically change once for organization, and you won't be. There's a feature for auditing. We can come back to that once we dig into the auditing area. So then there are email configurations, how the email system is configured, what is the email system, how it is synchronizing with Dynamics CRM. You remember we had an entity called email in CRM, so you could create an activity of type email, and that email is sent out. There is some system which is sending out that email. It looks at the email in Microsoft Dynamics CRM and it sends it out to the users, to the contacts, or to anybody who you are intending to send it to. And same as that incoming email setting. So this is yet another part of Dynamics CRM that you can configure this server-side synchronization or email router. It's a total big concept out of CRM Dynamics. We'll come back to that in later sessions. And we have marketing, enable direct email via mail merge, default set to yes. Set whether campaign responses are created for incoming campaign activity email. So for example, when you send an email out through your campaign, which you just had in one of our last sessions, that email, if you remember, there was a little thing in the subject of the email at the end, which Microsoft Dynamics CRM appends at the end of the subject, or probably in the beginning. I don't exactly remember right now. It's like a token. It's email tracking token. So once the email, if you send that email and you receive a response from the person with the same token in the subject, CRM can actually look at that token or email tracking token and link it to the email activity which was actually created in CRM, and it can actually promote it to a response. So it's just something that works out of box with, but of course it depends on if the user changes that token from the subject before sending the email, then it cannot do that. So set the auto subscribe option. We have something again about emails. We have customization. We will actually look at the customization. It's a pretty big topic. Then we have Outlook synchronization. That's another component in Dynamics CRM deployment, which is called CRM for Outlook. It's a very comprehensive feature, by the way. It's like you never have to open your web browser to actually start using Dynamics CRM in your organization. It comes in as an application or as a plugin in Outlook, which shows exactly the same user interface or almost the same user interface as you actually see in the web browser. And actually, most of the organizations prefer to use that when they're already using Outlook, because that's where they also get the feature to do. You create the email and it also shows up, and as soon as you send it, it also shows up in your sent items of your Outlook, and all the integration between CRM and Outlook or Exchange happens on the fly Then you can, of course, there are a number of features that are available. We will look into the Outlook feature. Yeah, if we keep planning these sessions. So reporting area, MS Dynamics CRM again uses SQL Server reporting services, SSRS in short, which so you actually also have some out-of-box reports which can be configured also, or you can create your own reports, and yeah, so yet another feature. Goals. It's very interesting, but it's a limited feature in Dynamics CRM. It's about the sales goals and how the goals are rolled up to actually show up as goals matrices. So yeah, just the productivity of the sales. Then yeah, some things about the sales. I won't take into each little bit of this. Service area, we have not looked at the service area. I really wish to make a session on solely for the purpose of service desk and customer service in Dynamics CRM out of box. Synchronization, that's another thing related to the Outlook. We'll come back to this later. Previews, mobile, yeah. This Dynamics CRM out of box also supports a mobile app, which you can configure. The number of configurations that you can do with that also. So the bottom line is that there are a number of things that you can configure which are on the organization level. Now, we had already seen how CRM creates a top business unit based on the instance being provisioned to you. So once you get this instance from Microsoft CRM Online, you actually get your top business unit created as part of that instance. And now we are going back there so we looked at the business unit, and of course you can create business units beneath this business unit. So out of box, that's what I mentioned earlier in the agenda. Out of box, Microsoft Dynamics CRM provides you a facility to create hierarchical organization. That means you create your business units based on the org chart or based on the geographical setup or based on the roles and responsibilities or based on the operations being performed by the departments, by the groups within your organization. So part of that, we have first top level business unit. We'll quickly go through what is available in the business unit. Of course, there's a name. You cannot change the name of the top business unit. So remember, whenever you get provision, or you get an instance of Microsoft Dynamics CRM, remember to name your organization right at that time. So I had created this as I had webinar. You could actually have a different name, and this business unit cannot have a parent business unit. Right now we do not have any other business unit in the system. We will create one. So of course you can have some address fields, phone number of the business unit's primary number, and whatever. So now you can see that yeah, you can provide some more addresses. You can see the child business units under that. There's a question whether we can change the name of the business unit in on-premise. No, you cannot change the name of the primary business unit, which is created out of box for you, in whether in online or on-premise. Thank you. So we can create further business unit under this. Let's just quickly create a few. Let's say our organization is more about the operations, and it's more structured around the operations of each of the department or the business unit under the hood. So we have a business unit for sales, and it's again, you can see its parent business unit is the top business unit, so it is creating a hierarchy within itself. So I don't want to provide all the fields, just the mandatory. I create save, or I can save and close, or I can save and new. So if I click this, I will get this form again available for me to create another business unit. And you can see now I can see two business units. One is the top, then one is the right, the one that we just created after that, the sales. So let's say now we create a business unit for marketing. Save and new. You say customer service, and save and close. So we have three business units which are all parented by the top business unit of the organization. Now, then you can actually have teams, you can have users within the business unit, you can have facilities and equipment that the business unit is provisioned with. For example, they are you can see, we will come back to that in the service calendar or service scheduling. You can actually make use of the facilities and the equipment and the resources and the users and the teams available from the business unit to render service for your clients. So for example, you are rendering some service or you are visiting some clients and you want to schedule all those events in your service calendar. You can actually make use of those features like equipment and resources from the business unit under which you are creating the business unit's personnel who are actually going to attend that service offering. So yeah, we created a few business units under the top, and now I would actually like to close this one and get back to our hierarchy here. We have got, you can see that this is simple stuff. What I would like to show you is hierarchy. Do we have it here? So there is a way we can actually see the hierarchy, but it's somewhere in the system. I do not remember everything by heart. So yeah, this was basic setup of the business units. You can actually create business units in a hierarchy. And remember, it's very, very important to create business units the right way from the beginning. Because, and I have a very strong reason for this. Microsoft has a very strong reason for that, and that's because users are defined in business units. Users do not exist outside business units. Whether it's a top business unit, whether it's one of the child business units, user is always within one business unit. And once you create a business unit, for example, you have created your business units by the operations of your departments. Now, if the person is moving from one department to another, does that mean that the user's operation also change? Is there a use case like that in your organization? The users usually change their operations also. If not, then you probably did not create your business unit structure the right way. You might need to create one level for the geography and the level below for the operations within every geolocation or every region. So for example, I could easily say that my business unit, my top business unit, has the regional business units below, and each of those regions has one of the customer service, one of the marketing, one of the sales. Now, if somebody has moved from one region to another, somebody has been moved for temporary purpose from one region to another, but it's still he or she is still performing the same operation, you could still put that person in the customer service under the other region. So if I why does it not let me see that? Oh, it's here. Sorry. So I could say that I want to restructure this. Well, I have not started creating any records, any core records. Remember, core records being customers and transaction records like opportunities, codes, and all orders. I have not started creating any such data yet. I'm just setting up my organization in the right way, looking at the business units, looking at the business cases, looking at the use cases within the organization, the core operations that you deem necessary to be performed when using Dynamics CRM. So one of those core operations is that, okay, we want users to be able to move from one region to another without changing their operations. So see how I try to restructure this. New business unit I created North. Then I create one for east or south, create one for west, yeah, and then I create one for east, and then I say run close. Now I have got 4 regional business units, and now I say, okay, this customer service has to be parented by north. So I say, okay, this is a northbound customer service. Oh, sorry, I actually scrolled to that business unit instead of, I have to say, yeah, I take this one. So this customer service is now parented by north, and I say, just for the ease of readability, I say this north. So this way you can actually create. Now if we look back at the structure, we can actually see that that customer service has now gone down to be a child of the north, and under north you will now see customer service north. Remember, one business unit can only be parented by one other business unit, cannot have 2 parents. So you have to really create the hierarchy. Having said that, let's move to the users part. So let's take one business unit and you start creating users under this. Now this is something that you actually have differently implemented for online versus on-premise. Of course, there's a reason. In on-premise, you are looking at probably the Active Directory of your own organization. Microsoft Systems, Microsoft Business Solutions, they usually have been working with Active Directory in a good or strong coupling with our Active Directory, I would say. So the users who are defined in your domain, they are the users, they are then defined as users in your CRM. But in online version, it's again somebody who is using your Windows Live ID or Microsoft Live ID. I can probably try to create that as a user in my organization. So I go back to security, I take one business unit, or I can actually go straight to the users area and start creating a user from there. Let's take this one first, and then we can take the other part. The same process. So you can see that I'm created as a user here, and my business unit is of course the same as the top business unit. When I started this instance, it was provisioned to me as from the top business unit. And you can see that this is my primary email address, and this has to be, for online, this has to be the username also. So, and you can see it has a very specific syntax, and this again depends on the setup, whether you're using online, whether you're using something from which is ADFS connected to your organization's AD, or something. This is something. You can consider this as a domain that was created for me in Microsoft Online when I started provisioning this instance. I just started saying, create me a user with this ID, and Microsoft looked at that, and it doesn't exist a user ID with this. It created that, and I am here with this ID. Now if I try to create one more, I can say, let's see if it is even possible today with this. Let's see. We are just 3 days from the trial expiry. I would like to create a new user. Okay. So what can I do? Add and license users. So yeah, here is an interesting process. When you are looking at this instance, this is provisioned under Office 365. So what it actually expects is that whatever user you add from in this organization is actually defined in Office 365 first, and then it is defined in your CRM, just like similar process in on-premise, that you have the Active Directory domain users, and they are then defined in Dynamics CRM as CRM users. So unfortunately, right now I don't have any other user in this Office 365 constellation from Microsoft. I will have to look at that, but for now I can go through how the user is set up. So let's say we are looking at this user again. User has, of course, a full name. We click on this. You cannot actually change it because it's again taken from the Office 365 user administration portal. So whatever you change there reflects here. It's again, remember, it's different in on-premise world. We might also get a chance to look at that some point later. But look at some interesting stuff here. A user is always added to a default team. The team, again, is something that you can define across business units. So if you have a tree of business units and you want to create a team which is actually representing people from time to time who are working together for different temporary roles or temporary responsibilities or temporary appointments. That's the better word to say. So if there are people who are working on temporary appointments, like you have a job role which has opened for 6 months and you need people from sales, marketing, customer service all to work together in that job role for a time for a short duration. You can create a team and then you can add users to that team from the users that you have defined already in CRM. Now, whatever those users do, you can actually customize the process of creation of records created by those users to be taken over by the team. So now teams are for every business unit. There is by default one team, and for every user, the user is added by default to the default team of that business unit. So this team is actually the default team of our top business unit. And because I am a member, I am a user defined in the top business unit, I am also by default added to the default team of that business unit. So this team, if you look at that, is created as out-of-box team. And again, the same description as I just mentioned here. Then there are members in this team. Now, actually, what I could do is that I could add somebody from the region North Sales to be member of this team. So this unit is above, this team is in a business unit above the North business unit. Whatever this team has access to in terms of records in CRM, the user, if that user is member of this team, will also get the access to those records. So that is again something related to security role configuration also. But if you look at the team, this team has, actually we're landing at the same record. This team has been assigned some security roles. And this role then allows right now it's no role assigned because this team is not playing any role, any operation, so to say, in business, but it's just for structure purpose that Microsoft CRM maintains. Every business unit has a default team, and you can actually add more teams to the same business unit. And then teams, again, teams and users are something who can own the record. So remember that if a user can own a record, the same record could be owned by a team at a later point in time. Ownership changes. Ownership is not distributed. So there could be at one time one owner of a record, not two owners. If you have to define two owners, that's where you like to go into a team-based model, that your records are owned by the team and the members of the team can also then see those records. So if you're, let's say you have a trusted model in your business where users from sales and marketing can have their own records and can also have records which they create, but the ownership resides with some common team, and there are members in that common team who should also be able to see those records. So I create a contact and I change the ownership of that contact, or I and let it be owned by a team. Now, in that team, whoever is the member of that team should also be able to see that contact. Initially, I am the prime owner of that contact, but now I have handed over the ownership to a team. So I have some questions coming in. Let me iterate one of those. How teams are related to business units? I hope I have answered that question. You can have one default team of each business unit, and you can have 4 teams in the same business unit. Is owner a team or a user? Is owner, ownership is on a record, and ownership can be at one point in time maintained by either a user or a team, but not at the same time 2 users or 2 teams or 1 team and 1 user. So it can be only 1 user or 1 team at any point in time. I hope that's answered also. So I hope I am not jumping the topic here. I just want to reiterate. We have looked at the organization, we have looked at the business unit, we have very shortly looked at the user. I would like to show more, and that's probably where I have to open my on-premise instance. I can do it at some later point. We have team space structure. I just went through that, and security role, I will take that after these 2 areas, hierarchical versus metrics. So we had just looked at the, by default, hierarchical organization. I'm running a bit short on time. I've already touched the 30 minutes box, but just spare me 5 more minutes. Hierarchical organization, we have already seen that in CRM you can create by default a hierarchical organization. It's not, it's every business unit being parented by one business unit that creates a hierarchy. The depth of the hierarchy, it's a straightforward question, straightforward answer. You can look at the you can find it in the knowledge base articles or some help guide in Microsoft CRM, but it's pretty extensive. You can go to quite some depth. Metrics organization. So once we have created a hierarchical organization, remember we touched on the topic of you can create teams which can have users from different business units, and it's not necessary that the team is or has the members from the business units at the same level where the team is. So let's say I have a team at this business unit, and now I don't have users right now, but now if I have a user which is defined in a business unit under this business unit, let's say we have region north, and region north has got some users. Now I defined some user here. Right now I cannot do that, but that user, remember north is parented by webinar business unit, the top business unit. Now if I define a user here and I want that user to perform some operations at certain point in time which relate to the top business unit, some operations which are like defining, let's say, accounts which are only accessible to the top level managers, top tier in your organization. These are the accounts defined in the top business unit. So now if I want some user for some point for a given time period to perform that operation, I can have a team, or I can add that user from not business unit to the top business unit's team, and then that user can also have the same level of permissions. Now this is now creating a team which takes a few users from one business unit, few users from another business unit, and creates a matrix out of it. That's what I mean by a matrix organization. Again, this has got a very significant dependency on security roles setup. I think we need to have a full-blown webinar session on security role setup, but the highlight or the highline of that is that in security roles you can actually go to the level of giving permissions or privileges for different users so for example, if I look at account, I can create an account, I can read an account, I can write, delete, append to a lot of detail, but there is a level on which I can do it. This has a significant impact. We will touch upon it at some point in time. I need to be more precise on how to go through this topic because it requires understanding of users, it requires understanding of business unit, it requires understanding of ownership concept in Dynamics CRM. Remember, every record can have one owner, and that ownership defines a lot of things. Who can see besides the owner? Who can see that record? Who can update that record? Who can delete that record? So I have one more question coming in. Sometimes in real world, a person might be looking after or working for 2 units, head of sales and marketing. How would you handle this scenario? Interesting question. So head of sales and marketing, yeah. From the wordings of this question, it's straightforward, brings in 2 things right away in my mind. We have some roles like head of sales and marketing, and we have the word units as such in the question. A person might be looking after or working for 2 units. So that's where you can actually make use of security role and the team, a mix and match of both. You create a team in one business unit, you assign a security role to that team. So if we look at this team, you can assign roles to the team. Right now this team does not have any role, but of course you can assign some roles, and once you assign that role to the team, the users under that team will then be able to do those operations. But again, it is important where the team itself is placed. So this team is right now placed at the top business unit. If I have a team which is on a business unit below, then that team has the permissions, that team has got the role to, for example, being a sales manager. Sales manager has probably got permissions to create, update, delete, but cannot share the records, for example. So, and that is on the own business unit level of that sales manager. So the team being defined at a specific business unit having a specific role will eventually mean that the members of that team will also get the same permissions or privileges as the team's security roles imply. This is again something that has got a significant dependency for the understanding of security roles in CRM. We will come back to this topic in one of the later sessions, but I hope if you get an instance of CRM Online, you can start creating users in your Office 365 and start working with users. Let's keep in touch and stay on the track for this, and we'll come back to this topic yet again. For now, I hope I have made you a bit more aware on the administration part in Dynamics CRM, and I hope to deliver you more in near future. Thank you very much and have a good day.